Oh, the voice is quite different. All right, let me share again. The task. All right. Yeah, so that's the overview of the priority, the task size, and the release criteria. So just let me, because for the recording, let just me repeat. So for the release, we need to have the urgent task to be finished as the bare minimum. And the second criteria is the high priority tasks to be done. So each of the categories, features, testing, deployments, and documentation, they are both high and urgent. So we finish high first, but that does not mean people should not get started with the other priorities. If you started with a small, medium, or low, that's perfectly fine. It's just when it comes to merging, if you have two conflicts PRs, the high priorities one is merged first, then the low priority ones. And the size just determines it's just a very rough estimate how long it's going to take from start to finish. If you are going to say we have released we are going to have a release by the middle of December, and we have not started the large task yet, then that's the chances we are going to drop the priority and move it to the next release. Right. So any questions?
Maybe you already comment, but so is there like a
sorry, I have to
get
used to. All right.
It's when you're planning to do a release, like every 2 months, so what's the interval between the release?
Yeah, so this is also my proposal for discussion. It's not by no means final, it's just a suggestion. My idea is that we cast a feature release for every, that's a 0.4, 0.5, this is called feature release, and we have a refactoring release after that. So like for 0.41, that's going to be a refactor release and bug fixings. And we have two minor releases after the major release. And then we simultaneously start scoping the next major release. So the major release comes as a 3-month interval, but that's in between, there are going to be minor releases along the line. The minor releases will cover the refactoring, the testing, and bug fixing. Does this make sense?
Yeah, it sounds like a good plan.
Okay. So
sorry. Just another question is, I don't remember now with who. I have some discussion in the GitHub about the numbers for the release, and it's kind of Go has some problem when we go, with bigger number, for example, version 2. So if we have a release every 2 months, we are going close to 1 and then to 2, isn't it? So I don't know how to solve this problem, but the suggestion was maybe to put like 0.04, like have something very low, and then we can increase it like in an easier way. But I don't know. So it's just
I think every year we should do unless it's a very significant change, we should not do incremental by 1, but move in decimal. So we can start with like 1.0 and then do a decimal incremental unless we have a very big feature. And then after a year, we can do an incremental of 1 and get to 2.0.
Yeah, this is a version thing. It's always a magical, and there's no science behind it. Purely art. Any other ideas? So let me just take this note. Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, it's just like integral increment, integer incremental just sets the expectation very high that a very big thing is going to come. It goes from 1 to 2. So we should stick to decimal throughout the year and once a year.
Yeah, we are already 0.4, isn't it? I think it's already high. So that's insane. So
really high.
Yeah, it's I don't know. So we can maybe we can check other projects, what they do.
Yeah, so currently it's 0.4, and if we keep, one number for a month, so are we going to keep one number for a month and keep warm up? So maybe 1 year later, we reach out as 1.6.
Yeah, so we have to define what's the release criteria. So in my opinion, as long as we have a stable release that have all the necessary features, we can declare we have the major milestone. At the points we are, certain things are still progressing. So the goal is that we have the deployments that can run all the clouds. That's first criteria. The second criteria is we have the accurate modeling and measurement. The third criteria is we support all the hardware platforms, x86 as well as the ARM and 390X. So if you have all these criteria met, we can declare we have the first milestone 1.0. This is just my own thinking. Let's see what is the best way in your opinion we can make that happen.
I just pasted that. Sorry.
Sorry. I'll just say quick, that sounds good to me, and I'm wondering if that is written down anywhere. Those
and I'm
points.
just ready to start.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I just pasted the definition we used before, and for the version, then we have the major release, and then we have the minor release, and then we have the fixed pack. Currently, if we use 0.4, it looks if we complete and then we have the one major release instead of one minor release. And so should we increase this release naming conversion, use multiple dot?
Okay.
And yeah, that's one for consideration.
Okay, so the major release, like I said, the major release is about feature release, right? The minor release is always what's the criteria for minor release? Like say we cast periodical release for every month, and that becomes a minor release. And then if you have bugs attached to the so I think that is I always want, to be honest with you, I have seen a number of reasons how the release should be versioned, but I do not have seen consistent patterns throughout the way. So if you have great suggestions, then I will more than happy to nominate you as the release captain. Should we?
So I think
anybody want to be like a release captain for manage the release? Because every major project has a release manager.
Just one, comment before that. I think it would be nice to understand what Kubernetes is doing. So I'm just checking here for the release, and they have like a very different dates. For example, 1.23, it was on February, and then they increased the release only July, and then but in October, 3 months later, they increased the release again. So it's not following any, every 3 months or everything like that. So they probably have like some different way to define that. And they also have some what they call patch release, which is the minor release. And sometimes they have like a lot of them, and other times they have less. I don't know how they decide that, but might be interesting just to try to follow what Kubernetes is doing.
Yeah, Marcelo, Kubernetes follows 4-month cycles. So usually every 4 months, it will come out with the one release. And then after that is the patch release. So anything that you patch upon that release, so probably fixing some bugs on that release is patch release. So every 4 months, they will have a cycle. Right, so for example, 124, 125, 123. So actually, when you release 124, the feature definition for 125 already started. So they always go with like feature definition, feature word, bug fixing, and then release. So like for every major versions, they first define what features they want to release.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, also I want to add to Chan's comment. So when I was in with Kubernetes, that is the way we develop these features and releases. And also, if you have some bug fixes, you backport to previous release, and that becomes the bug fix release. So that seems to be working well because of there's a synchronization period between different SIGs, and people are signing up to the projects in different ways. So it works so well. You can have multiple release branches and the release cycles. That we can just cover all these contributions. So for us, I think our goals are relatively smaller than Kubernetes, and we do not necessarily always have multiple projects going. So if you have like 3 months cadence, release cadence, and with relatively easy release schema, and people can understand what we do just by looking at the version numbers and the schema, and they have a sense what's the differences between the releases. That would be actually a better idea, in my opinion, because if you cannot just judge by the release numbers, what's progress you have made between this release and that release, it's probably even harder to use it. So which release should we pick? And what do we expect the bug should be picked up by the next release or just previous release? That probably is a major reason for usability. But that's just my suggestion. So I think so I will keep that, let's just keep that discussion offline and move on to the next milestone. So I just covered the criteria for the releases as we have the urgent task number 1, and we want to have the high priority tasks get done, and the priority can get changed during the priority will only be dropped, will not be raised during the development. That is because of the availability issue. If we cannot get it done, we better drop it and move on to the next release. But we do not raise any of the priorities during the development. If you get merged, that's all good, but that does not mean this is we absolutely want to lower priority task to be raised to a higher priority. Does this make sense?
Yeah. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the other one we already discussed the sizing. The size will determine whether this tasks will be picked or not. So basically, if you're X large means more than a month, large means around a month, medium means 2 weeks, small means measured by days. So if you're picking the task that is like a median, you anticipate you get it done no later, get the PR ready no later by December. So we are anticipate this middle of December at the release date. So if you pick the large task, and that will take a month. So the anticipation is you have the PR ready no later by middle of November. So that's the idea. So I suggested, I don't know who made the suggestion. I think that's a good idea. We need to have regular meetings. Is bi-weekly meeting or monthly meeting? Which one do you think is a better way to track?
Bi-weekly for me.
Bi-weekly?
To begin with, we should do bi-weekly.
Okay.
For development purpose, yeah, I agree. Bi-weekly. Monthly is too long.
Okay. Well, let's just tentatively using these time slots for bi-weekly meetings. I'm going to send us invites after the meeting. So release date is the middle of December. Let's pick a Friday, in the middle of December.
Friday for a release day.
Can we just nominate a release captain for this release?
What do we expect from the release captain? I've never been a release. Captain.
Yeah. So let's we use December the 16th of December. That is Friday. So the captain's idea is to keep track of the project because it's relatively small at the moment. So we do not have to check a lot of things. So the idea is if we are tracking the projects and see the PRs, looking at the PRs, so if they are already started, let's just say if the PR is already in place, and then we mark the priority as you measure the risks of get the feature ready for this release. If let's just say by the middle of December, a large task does not even have a PI yet, that means we are in certain risk to have that feature in this release. We're just tracking the.
I can give it a try, and yeah, let's see how it goes from there.
So we are going to rotate the captain. The next release, for example, of 0.5, we're going to have yet another captain to track it. And then we're probably going to do it by geographic locations. So if somebody in North America is in charge of this release, and somebody in the rest of the continent will charge the next release. And we don't do it in rotation.
Okay. I mean, I'm happy to share position with someone else. Oh, somebody's talking, sorry. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just wondering, like, the feature is not reflected in the planning board.
Sorry, when I say feature, actually, each of the columns means a feature. Yeah, because I should not just say this is feature. I just say this is. I use tasks. Maybe I just say tasks.
But should we have a tag for example, release captain to track the major features you want to have in a particular release?
Yeah. So these are the tasks. They have not. Some of them already translated into issues. Some of them are still waiting. For example, this one, because this one has to create issues in 3 repos. So have not created this issue yet. Okay. So this one we can.
Are we able to, for example, have a tag, saying this is for release 0.4, and then others.
Yeah.
We can give the.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think instead of putting the release number, it's good to just follow the tags that Waming created. It's like high priority, low priority, and the size. Some CIs they already can include that, but we have like a few tags in our GitHubs, and so I think we need to add more tags there so that we can use.
Okay. All right.
And so you mean the urgent all for the next release, and then probably high, medium, and not for the next release. So it's kind of hard for me to correlate because, for example, urgent is something. Some urgent patterns we are sure we want to put in next release, but probably others we can only put it in 2 release. So it's still I mean, urgent. We welcome all people to take it as soon as possible, but for easy to manage the release by release captains, we probably want to select the feature. Yeah.
We can maybe put like next release. I'm just saying that to create like general labels so we can reuse them instead of specific ones. So that was the idea, but definitely.
I mean, we can still have high and medium for us to keep a track of how much time we have to spend. But like if we tag them according to specifically per release, if somebody else is creating a issue and assign it a high, we won't get confused. So that would be nice if we have an additional tag that specifically talks about which release it belongs to.
And Homing, just to correct, it's not issues, but tags, labels.
That
can be real.
I wanted to add one important thing for the release captain would be to document everything that you do so that we can build upon it for the next release. So yeah, I think that should be an important part.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, buddy. Right, so I think that is a lot of good ideas, and I really like it. So let's just come to the process. So usually we create the issues, we create tasks, and we create issues, and we go through design, go through PR, go through testing and documentation. This is the complete cycle, but because some tasks are bigger than the others, so you do not have to follow everything. But I do like the idea, and I think Marcelo, you also have this suggestion. So in one of the PR reviews, have the issues created first, and then by design, followed by the process. We would suggest people who are working in on the tasks, they follow the same process. So if that's a big PR and you want to have discussions, just create a design PR first, and then we go through the designs, we make sure everything is in the right direction, and we approve the design, and then we go to the PR, the actual implementation. Maybe we can use any of some of these tasks for example, if you are going to do it. So certain things like documentation, you don't need to have to design PRs, and testing, obviously, you don't need to have a design PR, but just for like the deployment and the features, these are the ones I would suggest you create a design PR first. And also during the
So where are where are we going to put the design PR?
You can have create a directory for designs. So right now we only have a doc and whatever you call it. We do not have the. You can create another directory called design, and then we can just put some design PRs over there.
You mean something like the enhancement proposal?
Yeah.
Like in Kubernetes?
Yes,
exactly.
Like
so
that.
big change right now. Yeah, right now we are evolving, isn't it? But it will have some point that big change will be hard to review. So it's already hard to review big changes. So if we start with the design, more people can give feedbacks, and then have it agreed with everyone, and then because people that are changing things in different parts of the code will also be impacted for change. So it needs to be agreed with everyone, and I think it's just better.
Yeah, I like that idea as well. So we are trying to keep that process. If you think there's something that is small enough, you don't need to design. That also works. But generally, we want to follow the same process for big ones. Yeah. So
another question: do we have the template for the design PR? Which section we need to input?
Peng, maybe you can, for your first design, you can create a template. So we can just follow the process. Yeah.
Yes.
Whoever has the first designs has the advantage to create the templates for the rest of us.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And then so for the merge, and so release captain will be responsible for merge. So I'll just highlight that. I think Sam, you raised the question. Some of the issues are not being followed after a long period. So now we have the release captains in place. So the captain will review the status and responsible for tracking, and also responsible for merging.
Yeah, cool.
Great. So when we have conflicts, it's up to the captain to decide which one will be merged first. I just have some very simple heuristics. High priorities gets merged first. Smaller PRs gets merged first. Okay.
I know before the conference, you were talking about automating the merge process. Is that
right.
that hasn't been done yet, right?
It hasn't.
Okay. So that's just something we'll all work on the side, like figuring out what the best way for that is.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Just like the Kubernetes way have this automatically merging CIs. So we're going to figure that out. The feature, if you are running on the feature PRs, you have to have test cases. So like I said, because one of the goals is to have like more than 50% of the test coverage. So if you do not have a test coverage, if you do not have a unit test, that means that's where defeats the goal. So if you have feature PRs, you always have test cases, and the bug fixes always have high priority to get merged. Yeah, that's my general going through of these processes. I want to use the next 20 minutes to cover the tasks and see who are interested in joining them. And also Peru have the wiki page for the operator, because as you see, the organization has different projects. For Kepler, we have a Kepler, operator, doc, the model server, and estimator. So this is like 5 projects together. Even the projects is called Kepler, and we have a repo called Kepler. So you actually have more project repos you can contribute to. So we have to track them all. That's why I just suggest each of you take a look if you are looking at the features and documentation and deployment. Make sure that they are in the right repository. Give me a sec. Yeah.
And this is the link for all our HackMD docs. So you can I just pasted that in the link. If you're not part of the organization, let us know. We will invite you.
Yes.
I'm not.
Yeah, I'm not also.
Who are you?
I'm Marcelo.
I'm
Okay, we'll add
Just
you.
GitHub ID. You cannot say Marcelo or Chen. You just say, who am I in GitHub?
So I will say send you using your GitHub handle. That would be your handle for the doc.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I just for one more thing. So because we have the column features, testing and documentation and operator, so I tentatively have this idea of having this sub-projects owner to coordinate the process. And we also do it in a rotating manner. So meaning that if somebody is doing the feature for 0.4, somebody else will take this position in the next release. So everybody will get the opportunity to manage the process. And we want the process to be documented, so that can be reused as well. For this time around, I volunteer myself, or AKA I just have some opinionated views to take the features, as I will own the features. And the next time we're going to have somebody contributing to these feature columns to becomes next owner. For testing, I'm asking for owner, so who can own this testing column. That's your responsibility will be managing the time to speed, make sure that the urgent task will be finished and the criteria will be met. And so to the documentation and an operator. You volunteer? Okay.
I'll volunteer.
So I'm just okay.
Wait a minute. For testing columns, for the items in testing columns, so something I want to clarify. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Could you please back to the test column?
Yeah.
So for let's start from Shi One. So for example, OpenShift cluster which able also ready for now?
We have not got it yet. We have not got it yet. So 331. So
yeah, 331.
Yeah. So we do not have OpenShift cluster in the CI yet. That can be planned.
Okay. So
we do have a good start on that though. There's a PR open for that. Yeah.
Okay. From using Microsoft.
I suppose we have a PR for KCS, right? And
yeah,
for
that's a PR
OpenShift,
for we have not got it
yeah,
yet.
for OpenShift, we open, we have an issue in the past, and seems long time without response for the what's the version of the macro OpenShift you mentioned to me in the past? The OpenShift on the edge?
That's
Microshift.
Yeah. So any update from Microshift?
So we have not tracked that version yet. We can somehow, but we have yet another discussion with Sally. So we can think up on the OpenShift cluster on the CI. That will be a very interesting project in my view, and creates a lot of use cases for the community.
Yeah, so that is one question, and I hope we can, documentation for some design or say decision making, and yeah, and please for another one. Wait a minute. And I also want to, discuss about 3.4.1 upgrade to Lingo, update Lingo to v2, because currently I'm not sure what's your use for coding as IDE tool. One of the IDE tool. Yeah, one of the plugin I found, for example, I'm going to send the link into this chart. So most of VS Code plugin for Lingo already upgrade to v2. So with I want to make this one more high priority than the test coverage, because once we can use this kind of tool, we can virtualize display which line is tested and which line will not. So in my point of view, or say personally, I want this upgrade more high priority than test coverage. What do you think?
So Sam, I think this is could be one of the discussions. Create this the process to discuss with the column owner. So if you are participating in the test development and there's owner on this managing the whole process, then this is you could discuss with Sally. Sally is going to be the owner this time. So discuss with Sally, and as long as you can reach a consensus, I'm all okay, because the idea is the owner will make the decision, and the community will provide the input.
Okay.
Yeah. So just for Marcelo, as long as I think the HackMD is open to anybody who have signed in. So if you are signed in user, you can have rights to write to the document.
Try to access again. So I create the user, and but I have like forbidden when I click in this sustainability.
What? That's tough. I don't know how to make it shareable here. This is already for signing in orange.
We can check that later. It's fine.
Okay, sure.
But
right, that's for that.
It's forbidden, so I think not every user can use it.
Okay.
Can access.
Next for the documentation. So for documentation, anybody want to own it? So documentation means we have to have all the documents going to the doc, and as a matter of fact, doc is going to our webpage. So it's already have the CI/CD pipelines to publish the documentation to the webpage. So anybody want to be the captain for the doc? hear silence.
If nobody is volunteering, I can take, because I've set up the documentation. But I'm sorry, this documentation is the main Kepler documentation that is on the GitHub pages, right? Or this is the README?
The Kepler doc. So it's if you are looking at the expectation we have on documentation, the highest priority is just a matrix. So whoever has the good ideas on metrics and how to use it, should take
I think I need to work on that. And so I did the update in the metrics, and I was involved in some discussion of that. Yeah, I can, work in the metrics documentation, not document everything. I don't want to be in charge of all the documentation, okay? Just the metric one for now, yeah.
So maybe Peru, you are working on the overall.
Yeah, I can take that column, but Marcelo will contribute to metrics. I can ensure that the PRs are getting pushed.
Right. The features, who's going to take that? The basic meaning that we track all these features and make sure they are working in a manner that can be. Let me repeat the role of the owner. So the owner will be responsible to track all the developments and making the final decisions. What's the best way, whether that is in a good shape to merge, and what's the technology choices. And we take it in turns, and we do not mean seniority. We are guess the first preference, but we take in turns. So that's everybody will have a chance to experience the technical evaluation and decision making. So the next one is just for feature tracking.
I would like to take, I'll volunteer to take that. But Huami, I want to understand the difference between the end-to-end integration and the basic feature.
Yeah. So end-to-end is really about all the repos together, the model server, the estimator, and Kepler. Even I put it in the features, it's not necessarily a lot of developments. It's rather the whole integration.
The integration. Okay.
Yeah. So
does that include all the end-to-end test and integration test, for example? It doesn't, right?
That's possible. Yeah, that's probably also going to be one of the things. Let me just write it down. That's a good idea.
Yeah, that's test coverage is more like unit test.
It's probably going to be more like an integration test. Sam has the client starter, a client cluster running in the CI, so we can also run end-to-end test.
Yeah, but for Kepler itself, I just start a cluster, for example, with Kent and deploy Kepler with the YAML file. So I suppose the major difference between this, this task and the current implementation is about, as Minhua said, all the repos. So maybe for an integration test case means deploy it with operator and do some testing, because currently just the car.
I see. Integration test is more about how to deploy and operators, right? The end-to-end test is in integration, and then test coverage covers all other unit tests.
That's true.
Yeah, I suppose test coverage. I suppose test coverage also unit test coverage. A unit test of code, and if possible, we can as end-to-end test cover some API test. For example, start a pod, or say start a deployment, and to check some API works.
Okay.
Yeah. So
yeah, but
I think this is. Yeah, go on. I can talk later.
Yeah, but I suppose maybe, for example, this kind of API test just cover a response code, but not checking with real data. And for an integration test, maybe a long run case to see the data, if the data is.
Yeah, so in this direction, I would like to say also that we need some functional tests in the future. So right now we have the unit tests, we have a plan for the integration test, but we also need to have the functional test, which means we run Kepler. And it's not just mock like unit tests. Integration tests also running Kepler. It's kind of a functional test, but it's to test with other components.
Yeah, that will follow Waman's work with setting it all up. So once you have that, then we can use that to run the real Kepler for integration tests.
Yeah, we need the environment. That's true.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for E2E integration, we should have all the 3 projects deployed on the CI cluster and tested the functionality that they are working and the metrics are getting exported.
Yes. So it's probably going to create a repo of its own just for end-to-end test because it's going to pull the manifest and the artifacts from each of the repos, the model server, the operator, and everything, put them together and to run the long-run test. So I think potentially we're going to create an infrastructure, something like that, repo for testing, for integration testing.
And how, until we have the Kepler operator, is it going to be blocked?
So in the very beginning, we just use a manifest.
Okay.
All the manifests that we have been using so far, we just use those. Once we have the operator, that's going to be, so operator will create another deployment scenario, but the test cases will be the same.
Okay.
Okay, for the last 10 minutes, so we have the deployment. The deployment is about—
Wait a minute. Sorry, wait a minute. But how we prepare for, an environment with GPU there? So as far as I know, currently GitHub Action just provides us with some Ubuntu server there. But in our test case, we coverage not only for eBPF like BCC library, but we also coverage GPU cases. So it's where so how are we going to prepare that kind of hardware?
Yeah, so I think that is a very fair question. Can we get all of the cases covered? So like the GPU. So for anything that do not have the sufficient resources in CI or public clouds, we create test cases and run a test in designated environment. So if anybody has the environment to share, or we can run it periodically, we're using that resource to run a test.
Okay.
And for last one, the deployment. I just want to keep track of the timings. We have 10 more minutes left. So for deployments, the idea is to have an operator to be prototypes. So when I say prototypes, you have to have the operator that's usable, and it has to be registered with with Operator Hub. So you register is with Operator Hub. So anybody who are using Kubernetes or OpenShift, they can go to the operator and download the manifest to install the Kepler. Any volunteers to be the owner?
I mean, I'm working on the Kepler operator. I don't know about the Helm. So somebody can take the column. I'm working on the project in that column.
I can work with the Helm and can work with your column.
Okay. Okay, sounds great. So I will suggest for the owners to track the progress of working with the people in the team, and then we get the things tracked. Anybody want to have an anonymous to discuss which one you want to participate? Just get some initial ideas, who is going to do what. If you want to sign up on the issues, that's also okay to me. If you want to create convert the drafts into issues, for example, this one does not have an issue yet. It's going to be created, so I'm going to create issues for this. some other things. So this one does not have an issue yet. And this one operator, that, you know, even we know what is the issue is about, we do not have a finalized the task yet. So if you are owner or you are interested in working on this task, just go ahead and create these issues and the tasks associated with these issues, so that people can sign up. Again, this is based on your availability. If you are able to spend the next month and a half working on the project and can commit to the task, just go ahead and sign up. If you think you can help certain other people to finish the task, that's also welcome. So we are going to have bi-weekly meetings, and we'll track how much we can do, how much each of us can do, and then we will decide what's the release criteria and date for the 4.4 release.
Hey, Waman, I don't have permission to assign myself one of the tasks. Should I reach out to you?
Yeah, I will give you the access.
Okay.
Me too.
I'll take the support, the 331 if you want to do it now, but I can reach out to you.
Yeah, just ping me on Slack with your GitHub ID and what kind of access you need. So I'll just open up the access to you. So like, for example, Penghui, I don't think you have access to the Helm chart, Helm repo. So just ping me on Slack and I will give you the access.
Yeah. I just ping.
All right. Thanks so much. And that is a very good start for the first community, the second community meeting. So I'm going to meet a number of folks tonight. If you want to join us, that's great, but you are not obliged to. In the meantime, just feel free to jump up on the issues and create tasks and create the issues and create PRs. And we're going to meet each other in 2 weeks.
Sounds great. Thank you, Homing.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure to work with you on. And